Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured, why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description, and in every episode description, I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say, I'm watching so-and-so show. And then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it. And that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of the new Max original series, Full Circle. So, I don't have the episode titles out like I normally do for my videos. I actually planned on this being a completely non-spoiler video, but what I've decided to do, like literally like right before I hit record, was what I'm going to do is I'm going to start non-spoilery, giving my thoughts on the show. And then at the end, maybe like the last 5 minutes, maybe not even that long, I'm just going to go into what we know so far with this show and what questions need to be answered going forward. So that's going to be like a spoiler portion, maybe like around the last 5 minutes. Since I'm doing this, live, I don't know at what point the spoiler portion will start, but I'll put that in the episode description probably. So if you want to skip to that or something, if you're sick of hearing me run my fucking mouth after 10 minutes and you're like, let's get to the spoiler part, that should be in the description. So to get started, like I do with any new show, I want to give a little bit of a background on kind of like why I chose this show and why I choose shows in general. And one of those reasons is, one of the factors, I should say, is who is involved in it. So Full Circle was created by Ed Solomon, and every episode was directed by Steven Soderbergh. So Ed Solomon, he wrote 4 of the 6 episodes, and he has worked with Steven Soderbergh before, or I should say he has had his work directed by Steven Soderbergh before. Solomon wrote No Sudden Move, which was a movie that came out straight to HBO Max at the time during the pandemic, but that was directed by Soderbergh. And I believe that movie has a review on this channel, by the way. Actually, I don't do movies often, but I think I reviewed that one just because during the pandemic there was probably a time where there wasn't a lot of shit. I was looking forward to that. It was kind of cool how they were putting theatrical releases to where you could just watch it at home. So I think there's a review for that movie on the channel. But anyway, Solomon also wrote both of the Now You See Me movies, and he also wrote the screenplay for Men in Black. Soderbergh, if you are unfamiliar, Steven Soderbergh has quite the filmography under his belt as the director of the aforementioned No Sudden Move, but he also directed Aaron Brockovich, Traffic, the Ocean's 11, those movies, those 2002 Solaris, which I thought was really good. I specified 2002 because that version is like a remake of a version from the 70s that I think is like Russian or something, which I also liked that version. You're like, you watched the fucking Russian movie? Yeah, I did. I went to film school. And Contagion. He's done a whole lot of shit, a whole lot of respected shit. So this is a guy who, when you see his name attached to something, there's a level of respect that comes with it. And there's a level of, I'm going to give him a fucking chance that comes with it. Cast is stacked on this one too. Dennis Quaid, Claire Danes, Timothy Oliphant, Jarrell Jerome, CCH Pounder, Zazie Beetz, Jim Gaffigan. Like, who the fuck's not in this thing? But the premise. So let's talk about what this show is about. The premise of the show is pretty basic on its face. In these first 2 episodes, which were released on Max, today is Friday, July 14th. They were released yesterday, Thursday, July 13th, and presumably we will get I was gonna say maybe we'll get one a week, but I know Max Originals, when it was HBO Max, they might release 2 or 3 a week. So maybe we'll get 2 each of the next 2 weeks. I don't know, but I believe it's 6 total episodes. And in these first 2, which are released on Thursday the 13th, we essentially see a botched kidnapping. It's clear that there's a fuck ton of moving parts at play on this show, and that eventually we will see how all those parts connect in these remaining 4 episodes. And by the end of the 2 episodes, I was sufficiently interested in seeing how this plays out. But those first 2 episodes, they were not easy to get through, and I'm going to tell you why. And it's not because they're bad episodes of television by any means. Like, it was highly fucking watchable. I don't want to say it was good, but it's like, so here's what I'm going to... It's tricky to kind of describe this without feeling like I'm not shitting on it, but being negative when I'm really not trying to be. But the first 2 episodes aren't bad or anything like that. But the problem is that they being like the creators of the show, seem far too interested in boggling my mind with 8 million simultaneous moving parts. Like, that seems to be too important right here. And I don't like that feeling of our goal is to trick the viewer and keep them in the dark until we reveal some shit to them at the end. And I don't like that because it's like they're trying to beat people who are trying to figure shit out. And it's like, when that's your goal, the content isn't as interesting. It needs to be, you need to tell the story you want to tell. And if you can find a way to make it so people can't guess it, cool. But like, people are gonna fucking guess it, man. It's just how it is. So like, if sometimes it feels like shows are trying to subvert that, like, we're gonna trick everybody on Reddit. And that's how this feels. Like, they're like, we're going to send so many different signals in so many different directions, and there's so many different moving parts and so many confusing ways in which things may or may not connect that no one's going to figure out shit. And like, I don't like the idea of the goal being to keep me in the dark. Like, the goal should be to tell a compelling fucking story. And if you keep me in the dark while you do it, great. But I feel fairly certain that all of these simultaneous moving parts that were confusing and all the questions raised, they'll make sense and be answered at some point. But the experience of watching the first 2 episodes was lessened a bit by this plot making like 17 left turns and calling 83 audibles when I don't even know what the fuck's going on in the first place. So like, I've noticed that with shows lately, and I think Kaleidoscope did that on Netflix at the beginning of the year, where it's like, when you don't know what's going on, things going wrong are less impactful. So it's like, I can sit here, I can go like, oh, that could be bad, or that should be bad, or that didn't work out. But I don't, like, the impact of how that is, it's not hitting me as hard because I don't know what the fuck's going on. At some point later in the show, you're going to get the surprise from me out of, oh, here's the plot twist of why this is happening. But that's not going to, I can't retroactively go back and make these scenes that feel like they're supposed to be important feel as important as they are, getting the reason that they're important in the fucking finale, which is kind of what it feels like. Like, they're gonna like string me along until the finale, and they're like, here, we're gonna pull the curtain back, and now you can see everything that happened. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or that it won't work. I actually feel fairly confident that this actually is gonna come around and feel like a pretty complete series, but that's the risk you take, I think, when you make a lot of these decisions where you have all these moving parts, you have things going wrong and people who are connected, but you don't really know how, when I don't know anybody or anything yet. So it's like you lose a little bit of the impact if you have something go wrong or something goes tragic. All you get from me is, that went wrong, but you don't get any of the emotional investment because I don't even know what the fuck's going on yet. So it's also difficult to be introduced to 10 different principal characters, have all of them, their reason for their involvement and their connection to one another be a mystery, but still be really engaged with the episode and the characters. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things where, like, starting off this way with so much mystery and so many moving parts, it just makes these first 2 episodes a little bit more difficult to get through while they're setting the table. But it looks like the final 4 are going to be probably a lot, I don't want to say simpler, but things are going to start to come together fairly easily in the final 4 episodes. It's just the experience of these 2 is a little bit less. But like I said, I did still enjoy it. I am still going to keep watching this show. So, but let me continue. So, all these first 2 episodes really do is establish the fact of, like, the show is kind of like a wheel with spokes, right? or should I say a circle, with a million different spokes. But instead of being straight lines that kind of like move toward the center, the lines just kind of like crisscross across each other. And like that's kind of what it feels like. And they established that there's a circle and that these people are spokes and that they're all connected somehow, but that's kind of it. It just established that's the fact that it is there. But the important thing that it did fail to establish, at least until the very end of the second episode, is why I should give a fuck. Like I said, I don't know anything that's going on. Why are these people, why some people are being fucked with, why some people are being chose for missions and others aren't, why this specific person needed to be kidnapped, like all of these things that would provide value when they happen. Like if I know that, oh, this person got kidnapped because they are blank. It's like I know who this person who is the focus of the kidnapping, I know who it is. They're the grandson of a popular chef, but I have no fucking idea why these people who orchestrated this kidnapping would want to fuck with this chef. Like they mentioned the name of somebody they want to fuck with, but it ain't that chef. So like, again, like these are things that are cool questions that I know are going to get answered. But then when the kidnapping happens or doesn't happen or goes right or goes wrong, you lose some of that emotional impact. I'm going to stop hitting that. I've been hitting that fucking hammer a little hard, so I don't want to get repetitive. So I'm going to move on. Let's see. So where do I want to move to? So as if this show didn't have enough moving parts, they actually seem to have interjected something of a supernatural voodoo magic aspect as well, which is instantly off-putting when it feels like it doesn't fit within the tone of the show. But here's what I have yet to determine. When is it going to stop inserting mystery and start inserting answers? Because if it's going to be something where it's going to continue to be mysterious and they're going to loop in some like voodoo kind of shit, I don't know. I might be into that. I'm very curious as to the background of CCH Pounder's character, why she seems to feel that she has to take the actions that she's taking in the very specific and direct way that she's taking them. So like on its surface, it just feels like your standard like suspense kind of spy maybe thing, like not spy thing, but just like when you have like betrayals and like people who are like have motives that are, you know, that they're the people who they're working with don't know about, that kind of shit. You got to see that in spy stuff. It has that feel. So like when they kind of interjected this weird kind of like ritualistic voodoo type shit, I was kind of like, but then I was like again, since I don't know what the like the groundwork for anything, like who these people are, why they have to do none of that. Once I start learning that shit might be interesting. So I just feel like it's, I'm sorry, I keep hitting the hammer, but like, I really feel like I wish I had gotten more in these first two episodes to kind of help pull along, to help keep me engaged while they are slowly unrolling this mystery. Because it just feels like it's, I don't say convoluted for the sake of convoluted, because I feel like we are going somewhere, but I don't know. I feel like the priorities might be a little bit off. But, you know, I talk about this a lot regarding other shows that I cover, and I think Silo specifically did a great job of properly balancing, raising questions, and slowly distributing answers. You know, right now, what I've been presented with so far isn't compelling enough to continue to remain this mysterious beyond these first two episodes. But like I said, by the end of the second one, I was kind of like, all right, I'm in on where we're going here, so we'll see what happens. But like I said, some of the stuff needs to start coming together and making sense right away if the show hopes to keep my interest. But I do expect that it will. And it has my interest right now because Soderbergh makes it. The cast is outstanding, and they hooked me at the end to keep me curious enough to see how this mystery is going to unravel. So my plan right now going forward is to keep watching, and depending on like views for the video, feedback on the show, people going like, hey, I want you to cover this in like a more in-depth way, because like again, I'm even in this spoiler part that's coming up, I'm not gonna like dig too deep, but like if I keep covering the show, like yeah, we're gonna go balls deep in whatever's happening here. But yeah, you know, depending on all that stuff, it's gonna determine whether or not I keep covering the show throughout the entirety of the season. I'll almost certainly do a spoiler video, a full regular deep dive spoiler video next week for episode 3, because I think it can be fun to talk about a lot of the stuff that we are likely gonna learn in the next episode. I also know you guys tend to come to me to make sense of things, and I kind of feel an obligation to do that sometimes, and that's why I did want to do this spoiler portion. So I think this is now a good time to kind of like introduce a couple of thoughts, a couple of spoilery thoughts that I had. I'm at 13 minutes, which is a good point because I didn't want this video to be too long since it's mainly non-spoiler anyway, and I just wanted to, and I surely accomplished this goal of hitting that hammer on the head about how a lot of these moves in these first 2 episodes were less impactful due to me having no fucking idea what's going on. So I want to kind of like break down kind of like what we know so far and some of the questions we have. So Jared Brown is the grandson of what was his name? Dennis Quaid's character. I forget. Chef Jeff, I think they said his name was. His parents are Derek and Sam Brown. Derek Brown is Timothy Olyphant's character. Sam Brown is Claire Danes' character. And for whatever reason, even though they say in the show, a guy Edward Chang is the person who they hold responsible for CCH Pounder's brother-in-law's death. For whatever reason, they need to kidnap and kill Jared Brown in order to make it right. So that's a connection we still have yet to make. Jared isn't kidnapped, though. He's instead replaced by some kid who was stalking him, taking his stuff and keeping it. The kid lured him out, but clearly wasn't involved with the kidnapping, which I assumed he was up until the point where that kid gets kidnapped and Jared shows up back at home. So who is that kid, and what is his goal in taking Jared's stuff and luring him out that night? Like if the kidnapping hadn't been a plan, what would have happened? And also, what is his connection to Derek? Because they kind of suggest at the end that Derek was involved in that kid taking Jared's stuff all the time. So that's an interesting thing too that they raised. So CCH Pounder's character, she has a foreign name that I'm not yet remembering just yet, but she has a brother-in-law who is killed, which is presumably the scene that we see at the very beginning of the first episode. Like I said, she holds this guy Edward Chang responsible. I'm not even sure if we see Edward Chang in these first 2 episodes, but like I said, they decided to go after Jared on some voodoo like magic type shit. Everything has to be exact, like the amount of money they have to bring, the time that they have to arrive, all that kind of shit, which also speaks to Jared specifically having some importance. It's not just like, oh, we just got to get some kid that's going to hurt Edward Chang. Like, no, specifically it has to be the grandson. Why? And normally we could say it could just be any person who's important to the person we want to hurt, but it can't be that because everything else is so chosen so specifically. And of course my thought was grandson, but again, they're mentioning hurting Edward Chang, not the chef. So like, again, what significance does Jared Brown, the kid, have to this person who they want to hurt, this Edward Chang or whoever? But she essentially believes that killing this Jared guy will essentially bring balance to all the shitty things that have been happening to her. She seemed very superstitious, to say the least. So she hires these immigrants from Guyana to do her dirty work, and she has this thing where she like brings them over, and it's kind of like, you need to now work off the cost of me getting you over here. And so she makes them do all of her dirty work. And we have, I think his name's, is it Natalie or Natalia? Fuck, I don't remember. Like I think I have Natalie. I think it's Natalie, but I'm not sure now. But we'll call her Nat. That way I don't have to fucking worry about it. So we have Nat, who is her masseuse, CCH Pounder's character's masseuse. And she brings over Nat's brother and his friend. And they call him like, I forget what they call him, but the captions spell it like Xavier, but that's not how they pronounce it. CCH Pounder wants them and her nephew, who is played by Jerome Jerome's character, to orchestrate the aforementioned kidnapping/murder. But when Nat hears about the fact that they plan on killing this guy, she concocts a plan to switch out Jared for this acupuncture dummy. So once the plan is seemingly over, here's where we stand. Jared was never touched. We see him get mistaken for the other kid, and the other kid gets taken. Jared goes home. The guy they took, I forget what they said his name was. I think it was something started with an N, like Nick or a D, or N or a D, something like that. The guy that they think is Jared, who they now also think is dead and has now resolved this whole situation that CCH Pounder is trying to avoid, is not dead because they shot the acupuncture dummy. That guy is still alive as well. So they have no fucking clue. They think Jared's dead, Jared is alive, and the guy that they think they killed isn't dead either. And we don't know anything about what prompted CCH Pounder's brother-in-law to be killed why she holds Edward Chang responsible, why going after Jared is meant to level everything out, and then how are all these people connected? What is Claire Danes and Timothy Olyphant's characters? How are they connected to this? How are the Guyanese, that's right, teenagers, how are they gonna end up being connected to all this? And then Zazie Beetz' character is a I don't say a cop, is like a postal service inspector or something. She's got a bug up her ass. She's right. This is the first time I've seen Zazie Beetz play a shitty character, by the way. Like she's like completely shitty to her girlfriend in this second episode. But what's her role gonna be? So like, there's a lot of really interesting questions that this show set up that I'm actually pretty interested to see what's gonna happen and how they're gonna connect it. But again, to close out, the impact of these first 2 episodes was a bit lessened by having so many moving parts going at the same time that have no meaning to me. So that's all I got to say. I will more than likely see you guys next week for episode 3, and until then, peace.